From Sunset Beach, Hawaii, weighing 267 pounds, the magnificent Muraco.
Why is it they call him magnificent? The man who lifts condominiums off his chest. Anything that's explosive, anything that's exciting, Prince of Darkness, Master of Destruction, perpetrator of violence. Get ready! I'm gonna burn this place down!
Hello everybody, it's Don Muraco's Magnificent Podcast. My name's James. Plugs, donmuraco.com for all your signed merchandise, Instagram, Twitter, and etc. Today we're going to be doing Pedro Morales. Not that way. We're going to be profiling Pedro Morales for possibly 2 episodes. We'll see how it goes. But for now, I shall introduce Don Muraco in the Hawaiian holiday spirit. Mali Kaliki Maka Don.
There you go. I didn't butcher it too bad.
Oh, come
Almost
on.
there. By the time everybody, this is out of me, Christmas, Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Everybody, and Hanukkah, it's Hanukkah. Or, yeah, it's not Yom Kippur, it's Hanukkah. Yom Kippur is in summer.
Yeah,
baseball season.
Yeah, but like I know it from the song, so the Bing Crosby song, Mali Kaliki Maka is the thing to say.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. That's
They gotta buy all the Christmas carols are out now.
Oh, I love it.
You know, subliminal advertising.
I love it. I like that one. I like Burr Lives, Holly Jolly Christmas. I like a load of them that won't be played in America.
Oh yeah. Well, you gotta go through Brenda Lee. Oh, rocking around the Christmas tree.
It sounds like you're not into him.
No, I did start so early here. This year, the station that they started a couple days before Thanksgiving. You know, I mean, there's other stations too. I kind of forget about it.
I was in a clothes shop in late October, and I was in the queue waiting to pay, and the guy in front of me had a load of stuff to buy, or maybe a t-shirt. I don't know what he was. And then they played a Christmas song in late October. I just went, "Fucking hell!" and just put his clothes down and walked out the store. Just out of principle, he was not going to pay if they were going to play Christmas music that early.
I don't blame him.
I don't blame him.
I'm not that bad, but yeah. They got a bunch of new songs that are pretty cool though. The Prayer or something. Okay, yeah. Well, they have a Hawaiian, a girl that does it with a Hawaiian group over here. Then they have a male choir or male arrangement. I haven't seen the guys. I just heard the name and I can't think of it. I think they're South American, Latin American. They do, beautiful stuff.
Nothing here. I think it's all just covers. It's all just covers of old ones, but like more poppy. And I don't think. I'm trying to think what will translate that you'll know. So you won't know Leona Lewis because that's a new one. You might know Kylie Minogue, she does a great version of Santa Baby. But
Madonna's got the license for that one over here.
Oh, she tried to be English for a few years. She married the director, Guy Ritchie.
Yeah.
Don't know if you ever saw Snatch or Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels.
I was totally out of sync with her. I just don't get it. I know she's, as rich a woman. She's worth about $400 or $500 million, and just an icon. And but it was I was working and I did Material Girl and a couple other songs. I never really saw the brilliance in her. And
when did they come out with classic rock radio? I've got a feeling it's around 1980, like the year the Eagles broke up, and then classic rock came out, and then for a lot of people, pop music sort of just ended in 1980.
God, I don't know. I kind of died in the 60s and 70s.
There you go, 1980. That's all you need.
I haven't moved much past there.
If by the way, I'm going to bring this up, everybody. So, if you're wondering why Don's looking so much clearer than usual, a brand new webcam was shipped to Don over like 2 weeks ago, and I think you've just got it, haven't you?
2 nights ago, yeah, 2 or 3 nights ago. But
go.
it's here. My grandson set it up for me.
I was incredulous. It's like you just plug it in and it's done. But
You got to put them over, I put everybody over. It's been a lifetime.
Well, you
Start putting my grandkids. I was supposed to start putting my grandkids again. Putting my grandkids over. Everybody goes over.
You're doing the job.
Everybody goes
for the
over
webcam.
in his house.
Oh,
Yeah.
dearie me. Right, so let's move into the podcast. I'm going to bring a couple of news stories. And so I interviewed Gerald Briscoe on Friday. It's not actually going to be what you think it is. I'll mention that on the next show. But he also brought up, I normally ask a question that revolves around who was the hardest drinker. And he came up with some usual answers. He went, Andre the Giant, Joe Ledoux. And then he said Scott McGee. And it reminded me to mention Scott McGee to you. So apparently he's not very well at the moment. He's stuck in the UK. He wants to get back to Florida. There's a GoFundMe. But I was hoping you could come up with a good Scott McGee story. And apparently it might revolve around moonshine.
I don't know. And that's why it's Liversburg. I knew Jeff Ports, his dad, came into AWA, Minneapolis. And he was a good friend of Robinson. He was a nice guy. And then several years later, I ran into him, and he came into Florida and started working around Florida and stuff. You could tell, he was just a smooth, good hand in the ring. And then he ended up in the WWF for a while. I don't know how long he stayed. I remember, there was with the Bulldogs and, with the Neidhart and Brett. And so they were, did he spend time in Calgary? I'm not sure.
I can look that up while you
but I don't know. But he seemed to be, I think he must have, as familiar as he was with them. Or from England, possibly.
Yeah, he was English, wasn't he? I thought he was English.
Yeah. Yeah, his dad. It's Jeff Ports. What's his... Gary Ports is his real name.
Yeah, Garfield Ports, I believe.
Oh, Garfield. No wonder he...
Changed it. Oh, dear me. Have you got any stories about him? So Jerry Briscoe told me one day that they basically snuck him some, that 150% proof moonshine sort of deal.
Oh, yeah.
And then he ended up face down in a pond, and they had to drag him out, and then they put him on a sofa to relax for a few hours, sort of sleep it off. And then they'd sort of forgotten that it was mosquito season. And he ended up with 1,000 mosquito bites.
Oh,
he didn't feel pain maybe for the first few hours, but for the next few days, he must have been absolute agony.
Oh, man. Oh. Florida can do that to you.
You're right. In 1987, he began wrestling for Stampede Wrestling as Garfield Ports. 1988, he suffered a severe stroke, forcing him to retire. Oh,
okay, yeah, I heard he had health problems.
Yeah, so it's between 1985 and 1987 he was with the WWF. And as far as I can recall, he was a jobber.
I always figured it was those guys that worked out with Gotch a lot, how he's always putting them to sleep. All those chokeholds he put on, these guys are, passing out 10, 15 times a workout.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm just, just a
mild-mannered.
My medical expertise.
You're a mild-mannered news reporter for a major metropolitan newspaper.
Yeah.
Right. And as far as wrestling news goes, the big news I think of in the last week or so was the firing of Jeff Hardy. What do you know about it, and any similar stories of guys from the 80s or 70s?
Just what I've read. I didn't know the kid. I think there was a time there that he was on fire. About 10, 12 years ago, he was the ticket. I guess maybe it was after Stone Cold and Rock, or before Stone Cold and Rock. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was talking around 2009 or something. He ended up with a big singles run. And do you know what? I heard this recently. He's probably right. Is that he was more popular than John Cena? Problem is, he had too many of what the. He seemed
to be over.
Yeah,
his work was different. He had a new style, and it was entertaining, and the stuff he did was, he seemed to fit it into a match form mode. And yeah, I thought from watching it on TV that he was, he really had it going.
Yeah, the problem is he's been notoriously sort of unreliable over the years, and it seems to go in fits and spurts of he'll be fine for 18 months and then he'll end up with a DUI, or the most famous case of TNA where he was absolutely out of his mind, and it was like Victory Road 2011 or whatever the pay-per-view was, and he was supposed to be facing Sting in the main event, and he was so messed up, and Sting realised it that he ended up pinning him in 1 minute and then just ending the match, and the pay-per-view audience, as minuscule as it was at that time, weren't happy.
I never heard that story, but yeah, I heard he had problems with substance abuse, and it kind of goes like that. They come back and they come back and they get well, and they get well and then go off again. And then finally, I don't know, either goes one way or another. They either see the light, praise the Lord, and they're moving on to, greener pastures, or bang, they're dead or in jail for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a media, halfway to that kind of story. Hopefully, and I don't know the guy, but like your thousands, millions of other guys, hope he's able to work his way through this problem.
Do you remember any instances where you had to cover for somebody, maybe in like a tag match or a single, where you knew that they partied a bit too much before the match and then you work around it?
No, yeah, probably, but I can't. I can't put my finger on anybody. There were guys, they were high and, kind of wasted and drinking, and didn't want it. And some guys work better when they're like that anyway.
Yeah. I know there's one instance where superstar Billy Graham mentions that you covered for him in a tag match. This was during his karate period, and you've got absolutely no memory of the match or chewing him out afterwards, apparently.
No, I wouldn't chew up superstar. But that's probably his guilt that I chew. I wouldn't chew out Billy. I never, I'd probably, I'm sure I covered for him. Took all the work. That was no big deal to me in those days. I could work all night, all day, work out, come back and work again. And, was young, and he was hobbled, in the hips and the liver and all kinds of stuff. So, it didn't bother me to go. Some guys that would dog it, I'd play ribs on or do something, but somebody like that's hurting, and most of the guys are like that. They'll stand up for him, unless you don't like the guy. You got a hard on for somebody, and let him bury himself. But aside from that, most of the guys that cover for you.
Yeah, the only person who I've ever heard you say that you weren't that keen on was Ole Anderson, and that's it. You're like the most positive dude in the wrestling business.
Yeah, he was a dude. I saw him. You remember Deliverance, the movie?
Yeah.
We did on Saturdays. We do first thing in the morning. We do Atlanta TV, that Championship Wrestling from Georgia, and that was the big one from WTBS. Then we get in the car, drive, give or take 100 miles to Columbus, Georgia. Then they had the Columbus TV. So we do that, and then there's be a spot show on the way home, Griffith, Georgia, or Carrollton, Georgia, someplace, close to Atlanta, 34 miles. But they went to that's the kind of guy he was. His hillbillies, slow-witted kid came in just to do a job for TV. He's going, we don't wash our hands, and we wash our hands in the toilet. He's got the kid washing his hands in the toilet, just taking advantage of people. Just a bully, he was just a bully.
This wasn't like
the guys he could, he'd really shit on.
Not like to another so this was to another wrestler.
Well, he's a
Or like the
He
job
was just a
guys.
job guy, just a preliminary guy coming in, to get squashed on TV. The kid didn't know, he barely knew his own name. He was all starstruck and goofy, So that was just one, stuff like that. Just the way he talked to people, it just rubbed me the wrong way. And it was other people. Piper got along with Piper. I don't think anybody liked him, but people. Most everybody could. Like Briscoe, talking about Jerry Briscoe. Jerry Briscoe. Last time I saw him in person, he goes, "Yeah, I went up to Ole. I told him, Ole, thank you. Enjoyed working with you. That's it. That's end of story. Always, it's been a pleasure. Admire your work. The guy was a great worker, good mind, kept a hell of a business going. But just just he and I didn't hit it.
Yeah, the mean streak. There was like an active mean streak going on with him.
Yeah, he'd hurt guys if he could. Guys he knew he could hurt, he'd hurt them. And just stuff like that.
Yeah. With our main event, the meat of the podcast, we'll get into it now, and it's going to be about Pedro Morales, and a two-parter again. And I'll go through some basic stuff with you, and it's actually going to sort of like go into a title. So the first man in history to be a triple crown champion, winning all major ones, WWF, the major, the World Heavyweight Tag, and Intercontinental, of course, who you wrestled the title off of. But he was also a WWF United States champion, which has pretty much been forgotten. So I'm going to give you a list of a few titles that have been forgotten. If you've got any memories of them, sort of throw them in. And the North American Championship was like active for 2 years. Ted DiBiase won it first time. The International Heavyweight Championship, 83 to 85. World Martial Arts Championship that Antonio Inoki held for 4,000 days exactly. Do you remember any of these random belts that just like kept turning up in the 80s and disappearing after a couple of years?
I remember North American champion, but I don't remember where it was from. I think they had different. It was a marquee belt somewhere. Maybe when I was a kid or something. I remember the name. The others I don't remember too well.
Yeah, the North American one was 1979 to 1981, so a prestigious title if there ever was one.
Yeah, that was probably a lot of territories.
Well, I'll move on to Pedro proper then. Wrestling Observer described Pedro as the most important Hispanic star in WWE history. He sold out Madison Square Garden 21 out of 30 times. As champion, second highest percentage behind superstar Billy Graham. But do you remember the first time you met Pedro? And was it the same time as the first time you saw him?
I saw him in the ring the first time I saw him. He'd come to Hawaii after Australia to recuperate a little bit from his thing in Australia. And then I met him also before he used to come to Dean's gym, even when I wasn't off when he wasn't wrestling, when he worked out at Dean Higuchi's gym, Dean Ho, from New York, from Hawaii, New York, Vancouver. But it was Dean Higuchi. It was Dean Ho. So he'd come there, and all the boys would train there, and he, gregarious, talking, same, friendly guy. I think I was just in high school when he was there. But he'd come. They lived a life in Hawaii. They wrestled 2-3 times a week, they lived right in Waikiki, and they had no trips. If it was on an airplane to one of the outer islands. So he'd walk in, and every night would be a different hotel or restaurant or nightclub. He had a good life. So he was there, and that's when I met him. I first wrestled Rene Goulet, Vivian Vachon, a bunch of those guys are in town. But he was a regular. Tex McKenzie. I knew Tex McKenzie before. But on Fuji, of course, and the regular guys down at Dean's gym, Beauregard and a couple Lou Newman, a couple of those, old timers and guys like that who were always there. Fuji.
Did you there was like any etiquette when you were in Dean Ho's gym as a kid? Did you actually go up to the wrestlers and, interrupt the workout, say, "Hey, I'm a big fan," or anything, or were you just watching them from afar?
Just watching from afar. There'd be guys, Luther Lindsay or Carl Gotch. Sometimes they'd hold schools, and a couple, the amateur. Nobody ever cracked on them, but and I was a big kid, so they'd have those old thin gray mats they'd throw on the floor, and I was kind of like the dummy. They'd use me for I spent a lot of time in the gym, so they work. Luther Lindsay. I remember Luther Lindsay, and he was a good cat. I remember Gotch because he used to bridge, and no wonder his neck was so horrible. He used to drop in a bridge and bench 225, 315 out of a bridge. Oh my God, And I thought this was great. I tried it. And forget about it. That's probably a part of my man now. He was incredible.
Have they stopped doing the bridges, like the amateur wrestling net bridges? They've stopped that now, haven't they?
Sure, yeah. It's all isotonic, isometric stuff. Yeah, they stopped. They realized, how bad everybody screwing their neck. Maybe amateur wrestlers and stuff do it. I don't see anybody bridging any now. Recently.
As a former bodybuilder, how would you build up a neck?
But that was Fuji's thing. He'd find somebody that want to start training, So, come. First, we would work out the neck, and he'd work out being up and down, on the sides and underneath, pull. About 4 sets of 10, 15, we just, at the end, you just couldn't raise your head up, push, go, good, you're tremendous. You know how that, when you don't train a body part ever, and the neck, of course, Jesus Christ, nobody ever thinks of training the neck. And he would get out and he'd go to, his other little torture zones. And I told you the Tommy Sands story, right?
Yeah.
The guy that married Frank Sinatra's daughter. Yeah, he'd take him to the other torture portion. So you're warm and you go home. You don't really, realize, the heart you're going to want to die in about 3 or 4 hours. You're going to wish, you either lock yourself in a freezer or you just sit on ice for the next 3 days, sit in ice. But he would do that. He would do that all the time. Oh, come. Fuji's always saying, come. When he was younger, work your neck, brother, work your neck. Oh yeah. You shocked. You look the best. Yeah. Any wrestlers, they don't do that anymore. All the wrestlers, but Fuji was the lead proponent there of training people's necks.
Did you fall for that when you first started training?
I was in shape. I was bridging and training, doing all kinds of stuff there back then. I was young. I didn't stop training my neck till a long time. It was the WWE probably a few years before that.
Going back to Pedro, then you also we were going to save this for later, but we might as well tell the story now. Is he had some sort of horrible run-in, an injury? Where was it? What was it about?
King's Cross. This is all hearsay now, but it's pretty well documented. And that's why I met him in Hawaii. He was. As far as I know, he was slated to take that WWE or the WWF title quite a bit before he took it, but because they ramped him up and prepped him. So he went to Australia. They sent the guys to Australia, Japan, so you can bankroll a bunch of money because it's 6-8 weeks and you're there and you're just collecting money. You're not really spending anyway. He went there and it was King's Cross. In I think it was the Texas Tavern or one of those places down there. Probably I think it was the Texas Tavern, but it's King's Cross in Sydney, which was a real happening place at that time, and it was in the Vietnam and guys are coming there, and the hookers are getting married 5, 6, 7 times a week. Guys are signing, they leave them, and it was just, and Lewin and Curtis, and the ganja and everything was fun. Anyway, Buddy Austin, who was a great, great, great heel back in the day, real solid, tough, ugly, nasty face, dyed blonde hair, no body to speak of, but a good sized guy. Anyway, he rugged looking guy, looked like Valentine, but not as in shape as Johnny V. So I guess he roughed up. Or either wouldn't pay or roughed up one of the prostitutes, one of the girls down there in the tavern. He just slapped him around, and then her pimp came in, and he slapped him around, and so then it's their town. It's sooner or later there's more of them than you, and they came back. The guy, the head of whatever, the head of the ran the mob or syndicate or whatever group of the gang, as a word that it was. They came back to take care of Austin, and they did. And Pedro was there. So Pedro, not knowing what was going on, he stood up for Buddy, and he got swarmed over. And what I heard was straight was he had those big scars on his jaw and his cheek and stuff like that. I don't know, it was 30 something beer bottles they'd broken on his face. As they knocked him, he got knocked out, clubbed, or just kicked and knocked down. They broke beer bottle after beer bottle, and he was going back and forth to San Francisco and LA for plastic surgery, and then that's when he came to Hawaii for 18 months, and he programmed here, Johnny Buran, Collins and stuff, and they're using him in San Francisco or LA for big shows and stuff, because it's still Vince Senior still booked him, and he was still Vince didn't back down of his obligations to put the strap on him in New York. So he'd pick up extra things, and like most of the guys that Vince farmed out, Vince would kick in for your living expenses or whatever. However much, you had, because you're not making a lot of money in Hawaii, even on top, And he had a lot of good with Kaniski, and remember he had a hell of an angle with Monsoon when Monsoon was still working. Monsoon was huge. He made Curtis look small. Monsoon was about 380, 400 pounds. And he could move too, boy. That's what I always say, when you got they talk about Mount Rushmore with Bruno and Flair and all these other guys. You got to put their alter egos on the other side, the Kowalskis and the Monsoons and all those guys that got him there. Those guys that made him great.
Well, did Gorilla Monsoon? I've got it down here that he sort of discovered Pedro Morales, or rediscovered Pedro in Hawaii, because what was the did the WWF have a relationship with Hawaiian promotions? Or did Gorilla Monsoon own a piece of the Hawaiian promotion or something?
As far as I can remember, Monsoon, must have got out of Frisco for a few months to get to kind of clear his face, to get a new look to him. So I remember he went to I remember seeing, because Roy was running his San Francisco tapes in here. So Monsoon was up in Frisco for several months, 2, 3, 4 months, whatever it was, I don't know. And he worked he had, I don't know if Shires and Ed were together by then or not, but Monsoon worked some programs over here, probably by himself. He was, he had a lot of stroke, Gino. I mean, he had a lot of, so he probably booked himself, or programmed, or he, and like you say, his previous relationship with Pedro, he probably knew Pedro, and Pedro, they probably worked out something, because I think they worked like 3 big shows.
Yeah, with with Pedro, we'll go back to the beginning. Then he starts his career in New York when it's still Capital Wrestling or Capital Sports, excuse me. 17 years old, and he teams with a chap called Miguel Perez, Senior, of course. And do you remember Miguel? Did you ever cross paths with him?
No, he was, but he was. I know the name, of course. He was a big time, big time star around that area.
Well,
Those were good days. You didn't have to travel far to make money. They're probably making $1,000 a week, right around New York area.
With the Hawaiian Territory, I just want to go back slightly. I've read that Pedro was very successful in Hawaii because there's actually quite a big Puerto Rican contingent in Hawaii. Is that true?
I don't know about that, but there is a Puerto Rican representation in Hawaii, but I don't know. But Pedro's was a hell of a worker. He had fire and sympathy, and he was a great baby face, and he had good heels going through Cyclone Negra, and a lot of those different guys, Stevens and Pat, that Bockwinkel, all kinds of guys going through here. Curtis lived here. Johnny Baran naturally was hot. He was the top whatever he happened to be at the time, baby face or heel. So working with Pedro, he's probably sure he had shots with the had programs with Pedro. So I think he burned his eye or something with a cigar, either him or White Wolf. But I think he burned. I know he had. I'm sure everybody had programs because they brought Pedro over to be a top guy anyway. Because he had the word from the New York office. This guy's a top guy. He's one of Vince Senior's guys. Take care of him. It's kind of understood. You want to get something for your territory. You want to use guys. You want to get talent and eventually, or get some kind of help from us. Better take care of our boy.
No. And I also want to clarify one more thing before I move on. So, what year roughly do you think it was where Pedro got into this skirmish over Buddy Austin smacking a hook around? He was WWF champion in 1971, if that gives any context.
We spent 18 months in Hawaii, and
then he goes to WWF in 1970, maybe late 1970, I think.
I don't remember if he was in high school, if he was working when I was in high school, or when I was after high school that he was here.
It's probably
it was
like
about 68, 69,
Yeah. Okay, we'll move on then. And in his early days, we're doing the younger days of Pedro again, and North Carolina, Virginia area. He does a lot of battling with Gypsy Joe. Now, people of my generation, people remember Gypsy Joe as the guy that New Jack attacked in a match. But Gypsy Joe's been around was around for about a millennium. Did you ever see Gypsy Joe?
No.
Oh, really?
No, I heard you always hear stories about him. But he went down to Florida or something, didn't he? And kind of retired there.
I think he went
everywhere.
Or
somewhere. He was like a janitor or something. He got out of business. I don't know what the hell he was doing work with New Jack. What the hell? But that was, I saw that on some, that Dark Side or something. Oh, God.
You say working with. I mean, it was working with for about 4 seconds, and then it was just on for whatever reason. Okay, we'll move on then again. Freddie Blassie invites Pedro to go to Los Angeles, where he finds his first real big success, teaming with Pepper Gomez and Gory Guerrero. Now, I don't know if Gory Guerrero is too far back for when you were there, but Pepper Gomez you must have worked with quite a few times.
Yeah. Hell of a great Mexican wrestler. Had the thing, good fire, good leg, looked good, bodybuilder. Then he had that stomach, iron stomach. And they do the gimmick, you jump off the ladder on his stomach. You get it, and the heel would come out, milk it back and forth. You come off the ladder and land on, surprise his neck, and he'd go and the match would be made. But that was, I think I remember seeing it on TV somewhere, seeing that angle with Blassie doing it. And I think maybe the Olympic Auditorium, when I was younger, or something, when the Olympic used to show over here. But yeah, he worked that angle lots of places.
Yeah, Grizzly Smith.
Just success, successful. And I worked with him when he had the end of his career, when I was in my last run in San Francisco for Roy. He was there, he and Dean Ho. Oh, God, a bunch of guys. It was a fun crew. He was easy to work with.
Yeah. Did he work American style, or did he work the lucha
style? Yeah. I don't think he came from Mexico, did he?
You tell me.
I don't know. I think he's California or Arizona or something. I think he broke in, or I know he was a big card in the, back in the Midwest, Chicago, around there. He was always a big Mexican, big Mexican, Latin American name. Back to in the magazines anyway. Cowboy Bob Ellis and Pedro Gomez. Some of those other guys, they were like legendary in the magazines and stuff.
Was Gory retired by the time you went to Royshire?
Probably, yeah. I never met Gory. I don't know how old he was when he got up. Mexican guys work forever. They work till they're old. Most of them.
You still do. You still do. South of the border,
yeah.
They still do. I mean, apparently, I don't know if it's in AAA. They just had a big show, and they reintroduced somebody in their 60s as like a legend, and you just, they're 20 years crippled, and they're still doing it.
El Santo.
Yeah. Film star as well.
He came in, he was in Texas, he was a big star. They brought him in down around San Antonio, Austin, Houston, those areas, and he was a big card down there, would draw. Then, Angelo Mosca, oh, there he is, 190 pounds, 160 pounds of socks. 8 pairs of socks on his stuff. And you never miss that kind of stuff.
So did you ever actually speak to El Santo then? Did you ever speak to El Santo? I mean, did you wrestle him?
No, he spoke only Mexican. He had an entourage. He was another movie star like Mio Moscos. He was a big movie star. I never saw his movies. I heard he was another movie star.
I actually have. I actually saw about 20 minutes of one, and quite the thespian he was as well. Something I know he was on a spaceship, and I know he was just. All I can remember of it is it's like some really boring scene where he's talking to somebody, but they're all in normal dress, and he's in a mask and a cape and no shirt and in spandex, and acting like it's completely normal.
Yeah,
he was probably a better actor than I gave him credit for.
Sells,
yeah. We'll move on then. So, the California version of the WWA World Title. Do you remember as a kid, if you were getting the magazines and such, how seriously that was taken as a world title, and was it like a true world title in your opinion?
Well, it was a world title for them. I don't know what the split was, but the LaBelles and the McMahons were close. I don't know about the rest of the NWA with, Don Owens and Texas, and there was a lot of dissension about champions and stuff over there. So LaBelle made his champion, and naturally Blassie owned that title, America's title, right?
It is the WWA World Heavyweight title. So
I think it morphed into like the America's title or something like that.
Probably after they joined the NWA.
Yeah, when everything finally settled down and things came back, and they would use Kiniski or Junior or somebody like that. Yeah. I don't know if Briscoe ever went in there, probably, but it wasn't a lot. That was towards the end of.
They joined the NWA in the late '60s, so there was about a 10-year period where they were independent.
Okay, there's probably a couple of Funk Jr. Briscoe matches or something. I'm pretty sure Jack probably went through there when he had the belt, once or twice.
And it was Pedro's first major title as well, and he would wrestle the title from the Destroyer, Dick Wyatt.
Yeah.
They had a
yeah.
massive star in Japan as well as over here.
Oh, yeah. He lived that mask. He wore that mask all the time, never took it off. On the trains, everything. He ended up with a TV show in Japan. He was a TV, cartoon show, movies, afternoon show for the kids, cooking and whatever. Yeah, he was big time.
Did you ever take him on?
Oh, God. Possibly, yeah. I remember when I was in Minneapolis, he wasn't there. Or maybe he would, I think he was already in Japan. He actually moved to Japan for several years and lived there. He homesteaded in Los Angeles, Japan, Minneapolis. And maybe he was younger as Dick Byers. When I first saw him, he was Dick Byers in Hawaii. And he was with Blassie, he was seconding Blassie, and he was, one of Blassie. So probably morphed into, with Blassie there. All them went back. Well, Blassie didn't want to get hurt. Blassie didn't like being touched, period. So, he felt sick. Found a guy who felt sick. Well, he worked through that with Dozan, Ricky Dozan, because Dozan used to murder everybody. But, he was getting big money for that. I'm sure they were getting big money from Japanese TV, Americans, and getting a good foothold in that LA office. Well, yeah, but then Freddie didn't want anybody. Tolis, Byers. What was he, Destroyer or Dr. X? Destroyer.
I think he's Destroyer at this point, yeah.
Yeah, okay, Destroyer. Dr. Freddie just, wanted a bunch of guys that were going to be easy. Nice, just file his teeth and bite their head. That was his match. There's no arm drags or hip tosses there. Go there, brother.
I didn't realize that. I would have assumed he was, he wanted more rough and tough. Was he just like absolutely do not touch the face?
In his day, but you got to think, Freddie turned 60 in the 60s or the 70s. Freddie was up. He was 88 when he died, right?
Yeah, he was pretty old, yeah. Like 2003 or something. I'd have to look that up.
But he was, yeah. I mean, there are guys around manipulating, Rogers in the East and a lot. Ohio was a big area right there, that Midwest. And Vern and Wilbur Snyder, Bruiser and Snyder out of Indianapolis, with Jim Barnett. And then there are all these other guys, Al Happ and all Toots Mon, guys, names like that are legendary, that are Rochester, Buffalo, Syracuse, that was their own territory. They had their own TV, and off of Pittsburgh had their own, that wasn't part of the major Mother Lode network. It was all spread out, a lot of different guys.
Yeah, Buffalo's one of those like, really undercover territories to the point that I don't even know who owned it. But I was just looking here. Freddie Blassie, yeah, he turned 60 in 1978. So yeah, you're probably right. He probably did want an easy ride there in the 70s.
Yeah. He did not want to be touched.
Don't blame him. TV star as well. There's a weird clip I've seen with Freddie Blassie and Dick Van Dyke.
Yeah, Dick Van Dyke, yeah.
Who do you think, and this sort of ties into the WWA world title, if you did feel it was a world title in the day, who was the first black world champion?
Bobo?
If you include the WWA world title as a world title, Bearcat Wright says.
Bearcat. Bearcat was yeah. I just say Bearcat. Still even to the day, Bearcat got the best comeback. Got the best comeback in the business. He was, like 6'4", 6'6", and he'd run around. He'd do that Tex McKenzie, like that cowboy run around the ring with his legs and everything else. He was a big, he wasn't a like Texas skinny guy, and he'd do the headbutt and fly, and boy, he could really pop you. Whether he was, he was with Curtis and Lewin, so.
Always comes back to those two guys.
Yeah. They were busy.
Go on. How were they busy?
Just thinking. I don't know. It's just nothing. Their life was. Curtis was busy drinking wine, and Mark was working out and eating and wandering around.
Was Bearcat one of the guys when you were a young guy that you were flying all over the ring for?
Who?
Bearcat, right?
I was a baby. No, Bobo. Bobo, I worked with. I was a heel. Bearcat, I was a baby face. I probably would have, but if I was a heel. I was a baby, and then Cat came in as a heel manager in Florida. So I was never had the occasion to work with Cat against Cat. Work with Cat as an opponent. But Bobo, I did. Jesus, he was a big mark for him.
Sticking with Bearcat again, have you got any other stories about him, or was he like one of the super tough guys back in the day?
I don't know. I don't know a lot of backstories on him, but just at that Calgary, you get airplanes, and he was even. I guess he was another guy selling cars. And had a lot of, had a lot of side businesses, as it were, going that may not have actually been businesses or whatever they happen to be. Yeah, he had a lot of stuff going. Airplanes.
Many decades
airplane
ago.
License.
Many decades.
I think he got his pilot's license down in Florida with Eddie Graham. A lot of those guys did. Sam Steamboat, Eddie. They're always getting. Eddie get plowed up in the plane.
You're not going to tell us what these side businesses were then?
No, I mean just whatever he could hustle. Well, at the time, whatever his hustle. I wasn't around Cat that much. He was here in Hawaii, taking some. He'd always come to Hawaii. Seemed to like Hawaii, and he'd come here often, and stay for a little while. I must have liked it here. I know he was always hot footing it in and out of territories, and that he was before my time. It was an era before I was, but he was quite a name, quite a talent, and a great black guy. But they had it tough.
Yeah,
traveling, especially in the South. North wasn't too bad, but in the South, they.
Was it true that Ernie Ladd was like the first black heel, or am I going crazy there? Because obviously, or like I would say obviously, but when there were black wrestlers, they were always baby faces because they didn't want to engender too much abuse.
Well, Ernie started as a baby, and I don't know, was he before or after Abdullah?
Oh, question.
First black heel of consequence. Now I can't think of another black guy that was Siki.
Oh, Sweet
Siki
Daddy.
was a heel.
Sweet Daddy.
Yeah. Siki was a heel. And naturally black.
Oh, dearie me. Right, we'll move on then. I've got Pedro would lose the title, the WWA title, and then win it back from Crazy Luke Graham. Any thoughts on Crazy Luke?
He was, no. He got taken into the Graham family there by Dr. Jerry and Eddie. It was Dr. Jerry, Eddie, then Crazy Luke, then Superstar. And that was about it, huh?
Yeah, Billy was the last one, wasn't he?
Grahams.
There's 4. There's
Well,
Eddie,
yeah, Mike Graham, but Mike, that was Eddie's son.
Eddie, Jerry, Luke, Billy.
Yeah, yeah. And he was one of those, and he made it back. He was a big guy, big, round, heavy set, not a bodybuilder or anything, but he could go. And he had a good gimmick. I remember watching him a few times, not following him too much, not knowing too much about him. I know he's around. I know he did a lot of business different places.
Okay, I'll move on then. With Pedro, he would wrestle in Hawaii in 1968 and defeat Gene Kanitsky, who had just lost the NWA World title. So, obviously, there was a lot of stock being put into Pedro. He won the NWA North American title from Gene. Did he? No, I don't know. I can't read my own notes.
Yeah, maybe that was a North American title. That was a big one.
Yeah, that was in Hawaii.
Yeah.
And Gorilla Monsoon.
See, Kanitsky owned Vancouver, British Columbia, and he was the promoter there. So his partner was Sandra Kovacs, which was Tally Ho's pal, and they had a lot of good vibes going on with Don Owen in Portland. So that little area there, that territory there. So that's how they would get. They got Gene as their main event. He would come in with the title. He would work. He would come and work when he had the NWA title. He worked a lot of. I remember Jim Haiti for one, and a few other guys. Probably Steamboat. I don't remember who really, but he was. They used that NWA World title as he had it. And I remember the North American title. Yeah, that was a big one here.
How busy was the Vancouver territory? Because you went there in 1970, didn't you? That was your first place you
Yeah,
went.
it was pretty good. Not a real, there's not a lot of towns up there. They ran, and then the summer towns up in the Kamloops and Paul River and so boy, those are beautiful places. Talk about Hawaii, those are, anywhere, you go in the world, but those are just extraordinary lakes and rivers and sunsets, fish, and on the water, seeing these trout and salmon jump in the water. That's really a nice area.
There's a lot of talk about the horrible Calgary stampede, driving around in the snow and just the nightmare of that. But was Vancouver the same, or were you only there for a summer?
Calgary?
No, in Vancouver. Was it the same?
Vancouver. I was there.
Tour.
I started in April, and I lasted till around December. I came home to Santa Monica one weekend to do something. I had to get papers or taxes or do something, and then called the LA booking office, and they booked me for a couple shows. And they booked me on TV with Tolis. And Tolis was the big heel. I think he was getting ready for big blow off with Blassie. I worked with him on TV and put him over. They liked the job I did, and they invited me back. So I was, so from Vancouver, I went to. They didn't like it. They wanted to send me to Calgary. They wanted me to suffer. I don't know why. Older guys they want the younger guys to suffer. They wanted me to go to Calgary and get stretched by Stu. But the surf, Malibu, Topanga Canyon, and Santa Monica beaches. Yeah, that was that.
Funny how you always seem to disappear from territories when winter hits.
Oh yeah.
I'm going to move on then. According to The Observer, Mario Milano was considered to replace Bruno Sammartino as WWF champion. Do you know who Mario Milano is? Did you work with him? I think he was he a star in Australia?
Mm-hmm, yeah. Handshake, a couple other guys, just a handshake. And I think he visited, he was down in Seattle. I don't think he got along with Larry O'Day and Ronnie Miller too well. But he stopped by to say hello to the boys. I think it was maybe Melbourne. and not or Sydney, one or the other. Seemed to be a nice fella, but he wasn't interested. I don't know anything about his title, WWF and stuff like that. But
Well,
I guess he was, he drew money in Australia and a few other places that he was at.
yeah, I think it's because he was Italian, and they were going to
Yeah.
follow it up with Bruno. With any other Italian wrestlers or anyone else that you think would have been good as a replacement for Bruno in 1970?
Oh, I don't know who was there.
I mean, Dominic
Italian
Panucci.
guys. Panucci was one of them. He was around. He couldn't have carried Bruno's. Slippers after that. After Bruno's run, I know there's not a lot of guys, that. Who are the top heels or two were the top baby faces in the country in those days? Maybe somebody out of Florida, out of the South. Bill Watts, possibly. Somebody out of Minneapolis. Ray Stevens, of course, one of those guys. Great workers. Down in Texas, all the Funks were NWA all the time, all the way. And Jack Briscoe is just coming on. There Tim Woods and Paul Jones. And who were the guys? I don't know. There were too many guys that I can think of offhand. Like everybody had their territory. Like there was Snyder, Wilbur Snyder, and Gagne, but they each had their own territory. So they weren't going to go on the road to New York and fight, the McMahons and fight that, that the machine that they had there, Bruno and the McMahons. You just jump right in the middle of a, world. But they had their own territories.
Do you think with Mario, would you have seen enough of him, or at least heard enough of him to think that he would have at least been a decent draw in New York, or did you just not know enough?
I don't know anything.
No. Okay. We'll move on.
I know nothing.
I know nothing. I'll move on then. Another quote from The Observer. Morales returned to the WWF undercard November 21st, 1970, billed as US champion. Fans were shocked that it was Morales and not Sammartino who was meeting Ivan Koloff, who was champion, for the WWF title on February 8th, 1971. Morales defeated Koloff in 10:41 on a show that drew a sellout 21,812 fans and a new US indoor gate record of 86,665. The reaction to the Morales win is remembered as one of the biggest pops ever for pro wrestling in Madison Square Garden. So, obviously it works in the short term, definitely he wins the title, defeats the Evil Russian, and in the next couple of years I'll give you the names of title defences in Madison Square Garden. So it's Blackjack Mulligan, Tyler, Luke Graham, Stasiak, Blassie, Toru Tanaka, Baron Cicluna, Curtis Iakea, Pampero Firpo, George Steele, Don the Spoiler Jardine, Ernie Ladd, Ray Stevens, Lonnie, Moondog Main, Don Leo Jonathan, and Larry Hennig. One person I think I'll sort of take from that to get some comments is the Spoiler, who he would feud with for a good few months during the title run. Memories of Don Jardine.
Real quiet guy, minded his own business. Good worker, solid, methodical. A no-nonsense interview, old-style interview. No playing all the facts. Just the facts, man. Very, very, I'm going to take you, I'm going to put you in my hold, I'll take you down, I'll do the, obviously a little more, force behind it and stuff like that. But not, no, off the wall, no crazy stuff. Who was later to come?
Who are your favourite masked wrestlers who are American?
Two and Bill Eadie There's some other guys I apologize to. The Claw, Tom Andrews, was a good one. Mostly I was around 2 and Bill Eadie. The Assassins, but I didn't spend a lot of time with Jody Hamilton or his brother, the Mauler. They looked like an awesome. They looked like an awesome pair. Man, Tom Ernesto was one of those too. Tom, he was booking Georgia afterwards. He seemed like a nice guy and knew his way out of the ring. But Hamilton, they said Hamilton and his brother, the Missouri Mauler, that was under the mask, and the Assassins. Of course, the first one was Zebra Kid, George Bolas. He was the first famous masked man, and that was for a long time. Then there was Dick Byers, and they held the position down pretty much nationally or internationally. You know, Dick Byers was the Destroyer or the Dr. X, two terrorists. So I'm sure over here in Hawaii we had the Executioner, Vic Christie, one of Tally Ho's old buddies, and he was just a crazy, but he didn't live as the Executioner, and I'm sure there were other guys around in different territories that I don't know about, and wasn't, like I said, the Assassins. I wasn't around them, and I'm sure there's a lot of guys I'm leaving out. But in my time, the guys that I was involved with or knew with two and Bill Eadie, Mass Superstar. They're both fine workers. Bill was the bigger style, me, Slaughter, Valentine, that kind of guy. Bob Orton Jr. He was 6'2", 6'3", 260, 265. Move well, good mover. Could move, maybe a little lighter, but moved well.
Who were the masked guys who would protect their identity the most? Maybe even from the other guys in the locker room.
Well, Johnny Walker, he took a his. I imagine Edie was, but I wasn't around him that much. And I was when he was really hot in Georgia, and I was around and I saw him there. I was a baby, and he was a heel, so I didn't, I didn't have a lot of contact with him. So I didn't have a lot of, nights out or parties or friends or car rides or something. But I just saw his work I respected. I thought he and Slaughter were two of the best big men going. Probably there's other guys, a lot of other guys around. But I liked he and Slaughter.
So I'm going to ask you to name your absolute favourite American masked guy. Is it going to be two or is it going to be a Mass Superstar?
Yeah. Well, I'm prejudiced to two because two's a Hawaiian boy. We had the same judo coach. I was just going to mention somebody too that passed away. It'll come. God, they're both two had his thing. Two had his gimmick down, and Tim Woods was Mr. Wrestling #1. He got over real good. Two was a baby face, and Bill was a heel. Put it that way. So then Bill came in. He came into New York as a Mass Superstar, and stayed like his 5-6 months run there. I think he had Japan going pretty well at the time. So he didn't, and then he got they offered him the demolition thing, and that's when he knocked off everything and just stayed with that.
Yeah, somebody I'd love to interview if I ever do at some point as well. I'll ask you a couple more, then we'll shut this podcast down. Pedro would face San Martino at Shea Stadium, one of the original showdowns in Shea, September 30th, 1972, to a 65-05 draw, builders 75 minutes. How does one work a top-tier babyface versus babyface match without disappointing the fans and it being enjoyable? Because it's, especially back in those days, it's very risky.
very slowly. Very slowly. You build them up from, pushing and this and that. And there's got to be, somebody's got to piss somebody off sooner or later, There's got to be a little animosity in there to to stir the people up a little bit, Either Pedro or, you didn't need to do that, get them, put that, get that other thing, But Deb Funk Jr. was the master of that, going to territories where not only be working with the top heel, he'd be working with the top baby face as well. And he'd start with that uppercut forearm or actually he'd start the match with the first tackle he'd take off the ropes, boom. He would just splatter the whole ring. And then, whoa, you just got your attention right there. And then, and he would build it up, hold the arm. Finally gets frustrated. And your hometown hero is doing so well with the world champion, you might beat him. And then Dory throws an elbow in there to screw everything up. But that's the, you got to do a little bit. You're the world. Some of those guys, Terry was nuts. Terry Funk, he was great. He'd do anything. He'd up there scream, he was, they say that's when the title went down. But God damn, Terry was a hell of a worker too, But, yeah. You got, there's a point there where you got to, throw an elbow or uppercut or, do something. Not actually pull hair or punch or bite or anything like that. But, it's got to be subtle. And, and you got exaggerated a little bit and, carry on.
Why would, I mean, obviously because the fans would want to see it, but why would anyone in the old days do it? Because there just doesn't seem to be any benefit. Because one champion or another is going to end up getting more boos than cheers. And if you want to keep both good guys strong in the eyes of the fans.
Champion versus champion?
Yeah, like champion versus champion. I mean, I wrote down like Bob Backlund versus Harley Race. And
Harley was a heel.
Yeah, but that was like a unification thing, and obviously there's not going to be any major winner coming out of it. But yeah, someone's going to be a bad guy in that situation. But like when it's like your two biggest baby faces, I don't understand why. Well, maybe just for curiosity.
You said 65,000 people?
Yeah, maybe it was. No, I said 65 minutes. It was probably like 30,000.
65 minutes. But a lot of thousands of people, huh?
Oh yeah, good 30,000 probably or something. Yeah.
Yeah, Shea Stadium. It's you gotta keep changing pitches. You can't keep throwing that fastball, that curve every time. You gotta throw him something, and a good worker will make you like it. It might, and if it sounds good on paper, and you expect, well, these two guys are, and it's made for lots of times. It's made for some stinking matches too. But good workers can change it and would set. I remember he came here with Handsome John Baran, and Johnny was a heel, but a baby face. He was a heel with a heel that was loved. He's crazy off nuts, but and I remember watching him and Funk, and how Funk let him through, and Johnny was another guy didn't want to be touched or bruised or battered either. He didn't want and Funk. I don't know if they went through or what happened, but Joe Jr. was a master at that. He and Briscoe. You want to know what's a prototype of how pro wrestling could, should, would be. We'll go through one of those hours of Jack and Junior, and that's just Jack with that left arm flailing, that left arm Briscoe grab, and the Dory just, they used to call him Liquid Valium. Never upset, never, okay.
I'll mention maybe one or two more things and we'll shut down. Famous story where Morales was interviewed by Vince McMahon shortly before the Bruno showdown at Shea. and it was basically an interview that was played out of time. Vince McMahon said, "Oh boy, you really showed that Ernie lad. You really out-wrestled him." To Pedro. Problem was this interview was on a Saturday morning, and the Madison Square Garden show where Pedro was wrestling Ernie was that evening. So it sort of went a bit wrong and out of kilter. Do you remember when you were doing all these thousands of interviews every TV taping? Do you remember any ever going out the wrong way or out of order? Or do you remember having to remember about 30 different things and work out which week you were on and it all going a bit wrong?
Everybody compartmentalized in their own mind. Usually, if you're one of the guys that were, full on, working the angles coming back, working the championship matches or whatever's coming back, 4 weeks from tonight, I'm coming after you, I'm defending the belt, or you got to, you come, and 3 weeks from tonight, and then tonight I'm wild, I'll be standing out in front of the building with my shirt off, or something like that, come on, so yeah, but Howard Finkel was the one that would coordinate a lot of that. And then they 8x11.5 legal sheets and write the matches up and the weeks and everything else as they went down. Stipulations, no count out, no disqualification, whatever, just keep, it was just like that. So now if there was a screw up in the TV or the sending the tapes out, and the wrong tape went out, that's very possible. And I think I heard of that maybe happening once or twice, but aside from that, I don't recall.
Remember any specific instances where it went a bit wrong, and you remember who was the victim of it?
No, I don't. Not particular. It seems to occur to me that his tapes went out wrong or something like that.
Yeah. Before I forget, how long was the process of recording these 30 separate interviews for different markets? Was it all day? Was it an hour?
2 days. Normally, when it started was at Allentown, Hamburg TVs. Those 2 days of TV. Normally, you had Monday. You had the Garden before you, and then the Garden was about 100, 120 from Allentown, and you'd leave the Garden. Leave early in the morning. Not early in the morning, 9, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning from New York City, and drive to Allentown, and get there and go in, drop your bag, go right to the ring there, and Vince had been over there doing even solos by himself. Wednesday night in Baltimore will be coming Wednesday night in Philadelphia, Thursday night in Philadelphia, not all at one time, just individual cutaways, back and forth like that.
So the process of actually filming these interviews, you'd start at what time and you'd end at what time?
Start at 12, 1 o'clock, end at, what time did they start? What time was when they started letting the people in for the matches that night? 6:30, 6:30, 7 if they had to get some, sometimes you'd have to stay after and do some more. Rarely they didn't want to do that because then they'd have a TV truck and stuff. They'd have to pay for that. But you go on the next day to Hamburg, and it's because you do the same thing, and you get there earlier. And they were 30 miles apart, those two towns. And you go and boom, all over again, all day long.
The pleasures of being on the daily grind, then, eh?
Yeah, that's where they had the snack bar in the back with the sandwiches and the soup and all the little goodies that kept you going during the day.
Yeah, so you're full of soup, and then off you go.
Yeah. And greasy meatball sandwiches.
And greasy meatball sandwiches that you would sometimes eat while wrestling, of course. How could we possibly forget? I reckon from there we can end the podcast for now. We'll pick it up for next week. So I'm trying to think how to sort of end this podcast, really. Plugs. Don the Rock Muraco.
Come to my island, baby. I go to Culebra. I'm from the island of Culebra, Pedro Morales.
Ah, dearie me.
Good man, good man.
A good man indeed. I wish he did more interviews. I'd like to know more about him, but that's probably one of the reasons why he's not as remembered as like Bruno and Backlund.
Well, his interview was pretty much hello, Vince. I loved it. Happy to want to say hello to all the beautiful people. I love all the beautiful people in Philadelphia and this and that, and my good friends and everything. I would go. I try and then Yoko Ono Casero, he'd get mad and do a 30, 40-second Spanish rant. What the hell are you saying? I have no idea.
Yeah.
But he goes, the beautiful people and the down and I could be wrestling. I could be wrestling Don Muraco. And there we go. Boom, amigo, blah 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 blah. And he'd run off with the Spanish, the Puerto Rican, and get and that's when he get all wild.
He was probably saying, you know,
no good son of a.
He was probably saying that. He was probably saying the hotel room didn't have enough towels. The rental car place was a massive queue.
He was selling to his Spanish people.
To me, I mean, I wish I should learn Spanish, and I just don't. I will do eventually, I'm sure. But for now, we're going to shut down the podcast. Thank you very much for watching. Do the plugs, DonMuraco.com for all your signed merchandise, Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff, YouTube, and wherever you find your podcasts. Amazon, I sell books about The Rock and Owen Hart. Just Google those if you are looking for a very late Christmas present. But for now, on behalf of Don, thank you very much for watching or listening, and we'll catch you again next week.
Arriba.